episode of Jazz, Juice, and Jam. How you been, bro?
Good, man. How you been, man?
Been good. Been really, really busy. It's great to do this show. You know, it's a bittersweet thing because the whole reason why we were doing it is because, you know, we're musicians and we're kind of out of work now because of the quarantine.
Good,
so you got to find stuff to do, which leads me to talk about this shirt that I have on. It's a John Coltrane with the Jazz, Juice, and Jam cup. We have way more musicians. I know a lot of my musician friends love wearing shirts with the great legends on them. So, and also got the logo on the back. Yeah. So the storefront will be in the description. Also, down there's a link to the official website where you can have access to any tours. That's not happening right now, but in the future, when we plan a link to more Jazz, Juice, and Jam videos, as well as a new magazine that I'm starting called Jazz Culture, that's going to feature musicians and just the jazz scene in St. Louis metropolitan area. So it's a lot of content I've been working with, a lot of stuff.
Busy.
So check it all out. What you been up to, bro?
Man, just trying to figure out what a bass sounds like.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the super monk philosophy. What do you mean with the bass sound
man,
like, bro?
So, like, for the past 4 months now, man, can you believe we've been in quarantine for almost 10 months? Bro, it's been almost 10 months. So for the past, 4 months, at the beginning, I was playing with, all foot pedals.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever type of sound, I was trying to get out all my foot pedals. I was just going to get that sound out.
Yeah.
Now, reeling everything back in, it's like, okay, what does a bass truly sound like? And it's like, does it sound like this? Does it sound like that? Acoustically, we know what a bass can sound like because of the acoustic bass, or sometimes even the electric bass. You can get what a bass sounds like, but how do you translate that into recordings? And majority of the recordings that not only I'm on, but listen to other bass players, it's like, where's the bass? It's almost
I agree.
Where's the beat?
Yeah.
Where's the?
I agree with that.
So it's like, because I feel like even as we record a lot more, which we're going to be doing. Oh, that's a promo. But even when we do more recordings, we have to know what sounds do we want to hear, not what the sound engineers want. Because to be honest with you, they can't do their job properly if we don't even know what we sound like.
That's a good point.
So
and you got a point though, because it's like, you ever tried to I know you have tried to transcribe a tune, finding the root. You like, where's the notes at? So I think that's interesting, and that's not questioned a lot. Like to just make the bass sound a little bit more, not louder, but just kind of.
It's not louder. It's more like, it's almost, people forget that as musicians, we're not just, what is a musician? You know what I'm saying? So we go down that road, but we're scientists because we're still discovering what is that sound. And we're going for, I'm dropping knowledge. I'm bringing knowledge out here today. But if you really think about it, man, I'm like, that's not what a bass is like. To me, that's not what the bass is supposed to sound like. So just trying to discover, what does the bass sound like to me, and then translate to other folks. So
that's curious.
Just some knowledge on it.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I am intrigued.
Yeah.
Almost as intrigued as I am about this next segment. We're gonna play a song and see if y'all can guess what it is we're drinking.
Sell some moon pies.
It's time to do Guess the Juice. See y'all in a minute. All right, so look, I hope you all figured out what song it was. We did have a protest. The bass player didn't want to play it, so that's on me. The tune, buddy.
Not my show, not my problem.
But look, I mean, it's the great Herbie Hancock. I'm gonna give you guys a hint. You know, it's one of his tunes, and it is what we're drinking
and
right
the
now.
juice is 99 cents.
Why you always gotta talk about everything we drink?
What's your name?
Anyway, moving along, we're gonna go into the next segment where we talk about some albums that we think you guys should check out. So, bro, what albums have you been checking out, and what album do you think that everybody should check out right now?
I think going back to like what is swing, like man, what is like truly swing? Like, what's the definition of swing? And like a lot of people, I'm about to answer that. Give me a second.
Sound like Jazz Congress over here. What is swing?
I'm the Barack Obama right now. No, so like sometimes people ask me like, what's a good swing album to check out? Okay. And to me, a good swing album, if somebody's asking me that, you want them to get it first-hand experience. You want it for them to be easy for them to pick it up, but also harder for them down the road once they start actually dissecting the songs and the album. So I picked Oscar Peterson +1. So it's Oscar Peterson, the GOAT, Ray Brown, the GOAT, Ed Thigpen, the GOAT, and the greatest trumpet player, Clark Terry, the GOAT.
These are all up for the debate.
There is no debate. They're the GOATs.
You can see the GOAT on the wall over there looking.
You can't see no wall. Let me tell you something. When you listen to this is like there's only 7 albums that I can listen to from start to finish. This is one of them, and it's like listening to how they swing and how they actually push the music.
Okay.
Like how it's almost like a force, because when you hear it, you're not going to stop.
Absolutely, I hear it. That's
nah,
how you know it's the real swing. If it got that
right,
that,
when it feels like barbecue, you're not gonna stop. So like my favorite song on there is Jim, and it's like the most prettiest song to me. I just love it. I love it. I absolutely love it, man. And you have Mumbles on there, which Clark Terry is known for, is Mumbles, or the Holy Spirit talk, but it's Mumbles.
And he's from St. Louis.
He's from St. Louis, so check him out. And also, man, it's just a great, like, that's one of the few trios, rhythm section wise, one of the few trios that if you listen to them correctly, you hear everybody feeding off of one another, like at thin pins right there, pushing a little
that's
bit.
That's a good point, man.
Ray Brown's laying it down,
that.
I still wondering how you got that bass to sound like that, because man, that bass is speaking to me, and it's like what we talked about earlier about what does a bass sound like.
Sound, you know,
that was that sound, and how they got it through, like once you get past the knowing of your instrument, the next phase is how to record your instrument. So when you're recording, you want to make sure the sound translate. And I don't know what the sound engineer did, because during that time period, you had some records where they don't sound as good, but that record is almost clear. So I would definitely check that record out.
Nice. I like it. I'm gonna check it out.
Top that.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go a little forward in time.
Time is a concept.
Okay. To 2009, the year I graduated high school, is one of the, man, for me, this record right here is one of like the greatest records that I've heard, modern records that I've heard, period. It's by one of my favorite trumpet players, Sean Jones, and the name of the record is called The Search Within. Don't pay him no attention. But this record, The Search Within, from the very beginning, bro, it comes at you hard, swinging. The band is on fire, and every tune is just. Sometimes you can tell. Sometimes to me, you can tell when guys just kind of put out music. But with this record, it seems like every song has a thought in it. Every composition is put together in a way that you can tell somebody just thought about it. They didn't just like sit and be like, "Oh, this is just the blues. I'm just gonna throw it out there," you know. And nothing against the blues, but you know, I'm just saying sometimes people just throw out music. But this record, I really love it, man. Transitions is the first track. There's one I got a chance to talk to, actually, the bass player. I can't think of his name now, but I'll put it in the description. But and he was saying, out of all the records that he played on with Sean Jones, this one was like what he felt like all of his work was coming to. The head of everything, bro. And so one of my favorite songs is called Life Cycles. And the reason I love this song for two reasons. One, the melody is just so gorgeous, but two, Sean actually talked about being inspired by hearing like the Windows 98 thing. Gung, 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 gung. Yeah. You know, and as musicians, we hear anything.
Right.
And we're going to write a tune out of it. We're going to do something with it. So, you got them. I got them. We all got them. It's time to do the controversies.
Oh!
Today's controversial topic is, what do you think is more important? And I've heard this from a reputable source I will not name, but to learn standards, learn a lot of standards, or to work on original music. What do you think is more important?
Explain on that question. Like, do you mean keep on learning standards, or do you mean start writing original music?
Both. Yes. I mean, what's more important? Learning standards or writing original music?
Okay.
If that wasn't clear.
I guess what I think he mean is, like, once you learn the standard, like, you know it. But original music, like, you keep doing it.
That's it.
That's our tech guy, man.
Yeah.
Turn the camera on you.
Give him a shout out. We gonna throw him in there.
We gonna throw him in there. He gonna put. He's right here. I would say the most important thing, in all honesty, is original music, because it's your own original thought. But in order for you to get to your own original thought, you do have to go through the fire of learning standards. Because all the greats have played standards. Mm-hmm. And a lot of greats, they actually know the standards or the American Songbook.
Right.
So, when you say,
what's more important?
At the end of the day, original music is more important.
Okay.
Two reasons.
Okay.
First one I already said. Original thought. Number 2, to me, and it's just me, I'm a firm believer that when you start doing your own creative thing, your own creative process, you start to own who you are. Because a lot of people may see you do a whole bunch of covers, which technically we're doing covers.
Y'all don't want to admit it.
Y'all don't want to admit it, but just like symphonies will do covers. It's not
Beethoven
and everything, or they do covers of Bach.
Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, we can go through the list, but it's a big old cover band. But I think as jazz musicians, or any musician, you should start fading away from doing covers. Now, every once in a while, pull them out for the audience's sake, or pull them out for your sake. But you should start leaning towards original music. I didn't get in trouble.
No. You did that very well. You stated that line very well.
I'm about to be a politician, man.
Vote for Bach. I mean, and it's one of the reasons why I love doing this with you, man, is because there's so many things that we kind of agree on, things we do disagree with, but like, and this is one of those things that I feel like I agree with you with, is that like, I'm a big advocate for original of writing, you know, of trying to write. Even if you just getting started, you should still try to write, you know, because I'm explaining my reason. Because Joe Henderson wrote Recorder May at what, 16?
16, when did he record it?
It doesn't matter. He wrote it when he was 16. And he definitely wasn't playing like that. So it goes to show. You gonna be all right? So look, in retrospect, again, Joe Henderson wrote that when he was young, right? I feel like as you grow as a musician, you should also grow as a writer. I think personally, if you wait till you feel like you're ready to start writing, you'll never be ready. You know, you'll be like 20 years in your career, feel like it's time for me to start writing, and you know, who wants to hear that? Now, that being said, standards are the vehicle in which we learn harmony and all those things that we learn to write with. But, and this is an issue I have sometimes playing standards, is that like, when you've heard them played so many different ways, sometimes it can be difficult for you to channel you and something like, you know, even if it's something that's like, they can't take that away from me. You know, it's like you hear Bird play it and you've checked out a whole bunch of people. It's hard for you not to reference them. But when you're doing your own music, it's nobody else you can pull from, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. But again, it's like balancing. You know, you got to have a balance of both. Because if I'm just going to be an original writer, then you have to play music that people identify with. And that's why you do have cover bands. That's why people love hearing certain artists over hearing original music, because when they listen to different artists, bro, they identify with a certain time, a certain feeling that they have. I mean, come on. I know you played in the clubs and we'll play something like So What? And somebody's like, I remember where I was when I first heard that record. That happens all the time, you know? But we need to create new memories. We can't just be stuck in the past, you know? And that's why for me, I think, and it wasn't until I started playing original music and trying to write my own music that I began, as you said, like finding out who self is. So
I would say this. I'm the person that believes in both, because you'll get called for gigs with most of the time it's older seasonal cats, and they will call tunes. They will call tunes that are standards that you may never know existed, or it's in the book but it's on page 543, which nobody goes to.
Just leave after the D's,
bro. So, you know, it's like, I think there's a point of standards you have to know.
I agree.
You should know not the whole American Songbook, but I would say 2/3.
Good chunk.
I would say at least learn 2/3, then original music. Or if you get inspired to write, which this is a whole different conversation about
Absolutely
inspiration on how to write and blah 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 blah. But it's like you can go that route. But 9 out of 10 times, learn 2/3 of the songbook, then go ahead and do original music. Because sometimes some like the best standards were redone in like the 80s and 90s, and they sound up to time. And it's like, oh wow,
yeah,
yeah,
man, and you have to throw into account. You have to throw into account the legends that came, before us.
Mm-hmm.
They of course play standards. Of course, one of the probably, and it may not be viewed as a standard, but one of the most popular jazz tunes is John Coltrane's "My Favorite Things," which isn't his tune.
No,
but
it is.
But it became so popular the way he transformed, like you said, transformed that tune into his own vehicle. But he also has so many catalogs of his own music,
right?
From Impressions to Naima, Giant Steps.
Right. Because that became him.
Yeah,
as he started writing more, that was him.
Yeah, and you just have to have, and even towards the end of his career, he said, or the end of his life, he said that he would like to go back and visit some of the older music and take things from there. So it's like, it's a great quote I heard Dr. Lonnie Smith say, is that you have to be able, as a musician, to walk forward while looking back.
Mm-hmm. Now that's the trick, because I think also too, and I think it's weird that the more you study jazz, the more you start learning these are just like themes of classical pieces. Like they're taking themes or excerpts, and jazz musicians will change that to a whole tune.
That's cute.
So it's like we're doing that while folk songs became jazz pieces. Of course, the blues and spirituals.
Yeah.
So you're doing all this stuff, and it's like, if we're jazz musicians, our main goal is to transform.
Yeah.
What is already there.
Yeah.
So, but in order for you to transform, you have to know standards.
You gotta
like if you're still struggling over, so what?
You have to learn words to write.
Right.
So look, we made it through that one. Every time we do the controversial segment, we always gotta drink more juice.
Actually, wasn't that bad. That was the one that clean. Learn standards
and write original music. I'll
learn
write
standards.
Anyway, so look. With that being said, I definitely need to get some more juice. So it's going to lead us to our next segment. It's time for current events. See y'all.
Thirsty boy.
All right. So look, Black Lives do matter.
Right.
Like what I said. But
bam.
So in our current event today, we have like a lot to kind of talk about.
It's actually a lot.
Yeah. So throughout this quarantine, of course, the gigs are really scarce, but I do have to throw my hat off to Jazz St. Louis, Jazz at the Bistro, for doing something that they call their Seasons of Streams, where they feature local musicians and they share it on the Facebook page, on the YouTube page. My brother over here, Bernard Terry, put a great quartet together of some original music as well as standards. So we definitely practice what we preach.
2/3.
And it was definitely a great show. You want to say anything about it, bro?
Man, it was a lot of fun. It was one of those things where, like, you've been quarantined so long, and you're like, man, I forgot what it felt like to work.
It's different. It's a little different.
I spending time writing out original music, and you're sitting there, and I had to call Kendrick a couple times. I was like, "Hey man, is this written out right for you?" He's like, "Is this what you mean? That doesn't sound like what you're playing." I was like, "Okay, let me go back and revise it." I'm literally sitting at the computer, I'm going through writing it. I'm like, now why can I write the hard notes out? The hard
that
phrases,
easy.
the easy ones. I'm like, and 2 and
That's
3
always
and
yeah,
you know.
for sure.
So, but man, it was fun. Nah, I want to thank Jazz St. Louis, man, and you know everybody that participated. It was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
A lot of fun.
yeah, man.
Just like your shows.
Yeah. Look, I've also done it. I have one coming up, which is really great. It's going to be kind of like a passion
Talk about
gig for me. It's going to feature it's going to feature a very unique group of a double trio. My brother over here, Bernard Terry, is going to be playing bass. We also have great resident bassist Bob DeBoo, who's going to be playing. Ben Dickey is going to be playing drums, and then we have the legend of St. Louis. He's played all over the world. I'm sure you guys know this name, Montez Coleman. Played with Roy Hargrove for years. Toured with McCoy Tyner, a lot of folks. So it's such an honor to have that, and it's such a challenge to have 2 trios and ascending 1 saxophone and to try to figure out like that dynamic. But I mean, I remember, we did the jam session we used to host at this place called Thurman's, and one time 2 bass players came in. Well, he was playing, another bass player came in, and that sound was so thick and big, but there was harmony. It's gonna be a very unique show, to say the least. So
it's gonna be good, man.
Yeah, so check that out when it comes out. Just follow the Facebook page, follow the YouTube as well to check out shows that Bernard has done and I've done. And while I'm saying that, please, you guys, like, comment, subscribe. My little doggy is agreeing, saying you guys should like, comment, and subscribe too, and spread the word on this. We're gonna continue to grow the numbers, and thank you. So look, we got a very special guest today. Jeez. You guys, I am so, in all seriousness, I am so thrilled to have this guest, Greg Osby. We've been kind of going back and forth, talking throughout this quarantine, and he's been checking out the show, and he says he likes it, and he liked the things we've been doing, and he asked if we could do a little bit of a Zoom interview. I have some questions, and Bernard, has some things, and so we're going to show you guys a little bit of the footage between us. Greg Osby is, a legend, and he has carved that legend, just carved that history in his own way, and especially in his own way. So many copies of clones of different guys. He's kind of been him, and has very prolific records. Band in New York is definitely like a beast of a record, and we're going to talk about some other ones. So you guys definitely want to stick around for that.
All right, technology is great when it works.
When it works, there it is. It's good to see you. Look good. I like the beard. You got good.
Yeah, this is my COVID vibe.
That's it. I know. I got it upstairs. The hair. This is where I usually go.
Yeah. Well, that is a distant memory for me.
and look, I got some pictures of the hot top fade. I remember seeing some, stuff with you. Man, but thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited. I've been kind of looking forward to this for a while, since we talked about it. And like when I was thinking about, I was like, man, the first person I would just love to interview would be you, because especially it just seems like as of late, I've been like checking out your stuff a lot more. I checked it out in the past, but I mean, just lately it's just been really kind of just resonating, and I don't know, just trying to explore just that stuff. So I try not to, just fad out too much, but I wanted to ask you, of course, about a couple things, like the albums, a couple like of your albums and kind of what inspired that. I feel like I was thinking about new people that may not, necessarily know exactly, like who you are and the things that you've done. I feel like it would be cool for them just to kind of get like a little bit just about a beginning. I know you was born and raised in St. Louis.
Right.
What high school?
I went to Soldan High School.
Okay, Soldan High School
on the west side of St. Louis. And at the time, that was back in 1974 when I went to high school. And, of course, they had the marching band thing happening. They had a jazz band, which was, commandeered by the illustrious Mr. Vernon E. Nashville Jr. He was very, very influential, very. There's not enough definitives that I could come up with to define how instrumental he was. Instrumental, to coin a phrase, he was to helping me pursue music as a viable career.
Okay.
He was very, very, very inspirational. He was a no nonsense educator, but also very nurturing.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And so he was the teacher there for my first 2 years in high school, and then he went to I guess Normandy High School.
Okay.
And then so that ended my participation in any school music activities because he was my rock.
Wow.
But
Really?
at that time I was playing in a lot of local funk bands and blues bands and dance bands because back then this is pre-synthesizer, pre-anything, pre-technology, pre-DJ, pre-sample, so you had to have a band.
Yeah.
And those bands were not just bands, but they were basically like armies. I mean, a small band would be 12 people.
Okay,
with a full horn section and vocals and percussion and maybe 2 drummers, maybe 2 guitarists. They were large groups.
Wow.
But prior to that, I started playing clarinet in 1972, and I think in the 6th grade.
Okay.
At Stowe School.
That's when I started.
Yeah.
That's when I started playing clarinet.
Yeah, it was a good age. There was a void in the school ensemble, and the teacher stuck his head in the door. Anybody wants to play an instrument? So me and a friend, we bolted down to the cafeteria. There was a big case and a small case. The small case was the clarinet, and the big case was the trombone. And we both lunged for the trombone because big typically means better.
Of course.
So he reached it first, and I got the clarinet by default. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I know.
No diss to trombone, but clarinet, served me well. I took to it very rapidly because it was love at first blow. That doesn't translate well, but yeah.
No. I can't. No, I think most instrumentalists get that. Yeah, no, of course.
And I think 6 months later, I got my hands on a flute, and I took to that rapidly. I was of the sort that you could barely snatch the instruments out of my hand. Here I am. I have something that can produce sounds and melodies, and then I have my little whole notes and half notes in this little ensemble, and harmony. And I'm contributing to a larger whole. So that that just woke me up, and it also was escapism. From the trials that lurked outside. Because it was St. Louis was on high alert at that time, with all kind of things that, were lures to young people. And there were figures, that people idolized that really did warrant your attention.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people went that way, and I kind of was pulled into the gravitational pull of music, and that. Yeah. So that worked out really well. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Quickly, then 6 months after that, a year and a half after I got my first clarinet, I got an alto saxophone, and that's when everything really got shaken, because then I was able to actually participate in some of the local ensembles. Now, mind you, I'm only 14 years old.
Right. Yeah.
I'm playing in these bands, and all the guys in these bands were like in their 30s and 40s and like old heads, to me.
Yeah.
And they protected me, and they also guided me, and they gave me a lot of fruitful information in terms of how to blend, how to to use my ear, how to stack harmonies and make horn parts, and how to read, because my reading wasn't great, and just how music worked, and also how to groove and how to elicit some feeling of dancing and vibe, as opposed to just playing notes, which is critical, because a lot of people who haven't played for dance audiences, or people who expect more than just art, they don't know how to to conjure up, feeling.
The other vibe, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, and this also goes for people who haven't played in church.
That's a big factor. The church,
Yeah.
the church is, they just
You can
say
tell.
just go. It just
You can
goes.
tell. You can tell. I mean, you can tell drummers who haven't played in marching bands, for instance. You can tell. I mean, they don't have that feel, or you can tell people who haven't played so-called, groove-based music or blues.
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
can play a blues, but they're not playing the blues.
The blues. Yeah, that's it.
And it's a big difference. I mean, you can
I
play an
agree.
academic blues, and then you can play a gut bucket blues that will blow that blues away.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's
No, I mean, man, that I resonate so much with all of that you were saying, because it kind of it's beautiful in a way to hear you talk about not only just playing the instrument, but how it was kind of in its own way an escape from a lot of things that was happening. And I remember when I met him at Blew It, he was that escape for me. I was having some issues just growing up, being a teenager, and he was kind of like, hey, instead of worrying about this, you need to be on that horn. He would take me to his house, and he was the first introduction to me meeting you. When you came to town, he told me, he's like, he'd just be like in his own voice, Osby, you need to check him out, Ken. You need to just, and so
man, just Blew It, man.
Yeah. I see. That's you got the voice better than me, but it was kind of like that mentorship that you don't. It's you don't really see that at all now, especially from guys older. So
the institution of mentorship is critical to one's development, and also giving a young player who has potential, who has musical aptitude, giving them just a viable perspective. Like, this is possible. Let me steer you in the right direction. Let me dispense with all of the disposable material that may not be fruitful or dutiful to you, but here's some stuff that can really be foundationally supportive and compounding, and you can just build a strong base from. And the lack of that has resulted in a lot of music that's being produced today having no basis to it. I mean, people are playing, but there's no reason behind it. There's no objective. There's no point to it other than execution. I'm playing faster and louder. So I implore with a lot of young people to try to latch on to somebody older and more experienced. Somebody who has been there and done that.
That's it.
And this is very helpful.
Well, because I was going to say, when I first that opportunity I had to play with you and Willie Akins at Jazz at the Bistro, I'd never heard an alto like that sound, like your sound before. And I remember just kind of like even studying what their mouth was doing. That was the first time I ever saw like what's called subtone, and even like in the lower register. Getting technical a little bit, but like in the lower register, your alto sound had more of a tenorish vibe. It's like a dark thing, and it's been one of like a big influence, I think, even subliminally, before anybody else. But that's like, I love that sound, and I even remember I was reading an article a couple of years ago about it was saying something that you said to the effect of, it's like, if all the other alto players use this mouthpiece, you went the whole other way. He's like, for your own. And I love that. It's just like
I'm kind of a born contrarian. I mean, it's gotten me in trouble, just thinking and that way and pursuing other avenues that are not the required and or expected path. But I think this is necessary for an artist, in particular,
Absolutely.
To try to cultivate some level of individuality and recognition. I mean, there are no written laws saying that you have to do certain things.
Absolutely.
I mean, of course, there's a course of order that you follow in order so you can have substance and foundation. But after that, within sky's the limit, and you should be able to try to access principles that will give you an edge or give you some level of like identity. But speaking of, the low register of the alto saxophone, I mean, this is because after I studied in depth, all of the functions and processes of the major alto players, and of course we know who they all are: Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt, Cannonball Adderley, blah blah blah.
Absolutely.
And I really, not only just transcribe, but I, wanted to deal with the inflections. I wanted to deal with where they came from, who they listened to. I would like juxtapose examples of them playing the same pieces, and then I would hone in on like certain turnarounds, certain shading, certain colorization, certain different false fingerings, and all kind of things, and things that particular to their approach. And after I figured that I exhausted it, which you never can really, but I wanted to expand upon the range of the saxophone that I thought had been abandoned. Because most alto saxophone players, they reside in the middle and the high register, and even the third octave now. People are altissimo out the window, and tenor players too. So I wanted to to examine how to get a broader sound, because I was kind of a skinny kid and stuff, but I wanted to give the illusion that if somebody was listening to me, that I was like somebody with a broader chest cavity and had a sound that spread like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to this nasal centered pinch, pencil thin kind of thing. So I studied tenor players, and I really got into Ben Webster, of course, Dexter Gordon, Joe Henderson, not Coltrane as much, but Sonny Rollins, Don Byas, and I also put a lot of emphasis on my ballad playing. So as an aside, to playing long tones for hours, driving people crazy, I would I would learn different ballads every day, and I would emphasize and play everything in the lower register as much as I could. Yeah, I experimented with vibrato pulsations and really try to get a broadness to it, so that when I did go upstairs, it would be shocking. It would be like, wow, it's like another color. But if that's where you reside predominantly within, and you can see, a lot of players, when they go downstairs, they have to honk it out. They don't have any kind of vibration. They don't have any kind of control over it because they're set up. I mean, they're fighting the setup, where a reed is too hard or a mouthpiece is too open. That's not, and they play these setups because they're hero played.
Right. Somebody's like, Charlie Parker used a 4, so that's what I know. I was like, man, that was a different time, and his mouthpiece
maybe was small.
Yeah.
Because you can't play a 4 with an open mouthpiece, so we don't know what he really played because he borrowed a lot of stuff.
That's it, and still made it all sound great. Absolutely. One of the things when you were talking about kind of not going like the path that's already kind of been paved, you said, you study the alto players, you're kind of like, okay, I'm checking that out, but there's this other thing, and that's going to lead me to, like, I have some notes over here, but one of the things I wanted to ask you about is your record. I know I'm going back, but 3D Lifestyles, like, it seems like before this, and I'm gonna ask you about that. How do you feel about the new term that they're trying to call, stretch music, where it's like using hip hop inflections? You were already on that, kind of wave, and I really want to ask, like, how did you come up with that, or what inspired you to do 3D Lifestyles, and what kind of love do you have for like hip hop music, or more like instrumental, more sampling kind of things like that?
Well, back in the late 80s and early 90s, I used to do a lot of sample sessions for, the popular hip hop artists. They would call, Blue Note Records, or find me some kind of way, because I was open-ended. I played with a lot of different people across the board, regardless of the genre. My only criteria was that it, was inspiring, maybe challenging, and, fulfilling artistically. Yeah, it wasn't always about the money. So, and hip hop was, becoming like the sound of, the streets. It had eclipsed, R&B. It had eclipsed, any other type of, social secular music and whatever. So and I found some redeeming principles in it.
Yeah.
Like, man, some of these guys, they don't know musical terminology. They're not studied musicians, but the rawness and the intuition with which they approach this stuff. I mean, it's just instinctive, and there's something there. It's very primal, but it's controlled, and those that do it well, their execution is something to be checked out.
Absolutely.
And I always wondered, what would it sound like? What would the baby be if you married those principles with those of a more controlled environment, and I talked to the people at Blue Note Records. I was signed to the label. I said I want to do this, and there was no opposition, because that was part of my deal, that I do whatever I want to do.
Free, okay,
or
good.
I'm out of here,
Yeah.
And so I employed the skills and the perspectives of some notable producers. There was a crew in Philadelphia called 100X, and I worked with them.
Okay.
Then I got like the ex-members of the Public Enemy's Bomb Squad.
Oh man,
Eric Vietnam Sadler, so he had a production team called Street Element. So I worked in there, and I worked at at the studio where Public Enemy worked, and I saw how they put together everything with that wall of noise. And then also worked with Tribe Called Quest, and I got Ali Shaheed Muhammad. He produced some tracks on it too, on 3D Lifestyle. He did 3, and those ex-Bomb Squad cats did 1, and 100X did the rest. So it was a nice mix of of the boom bap. Yeah. And then I tried to mimic the rhythmic cadence of rappers in my playing.
Yeah, especially on God Man Coming. Yeah, I definitely hear that that thing. You sound like an MC,
Yeah. And to be honest, and a lot of people don't understand, as I said, that after my trials with hip hop artists and stuff, because I used to do sampling sessions, James Brown's lawyers or whomever's lawyers, would charge these artists a lot of money just for maybe a 6-second sample. I'm talking about 5 figures, and so they would come to me, and then I would get some guys and go to the studio. And we would change the bass line a little bit. We would change the groove a little bit, change the horn line, and then we would dust up the sample, with popcorn crackles and run it through filters so it would sound like an old record.
Wow.
So I haven't spilled the beans, but there's some very, very prominent recordings that people hear. They say, "Oh man, that's Isaac Hayes, that's so and so, that's Parliament or whatever," but it's not.
It's not. Oh wow.
Not.
Okay.
But they told I had to sign like non-disclosure statements. I couldn't say but So we did that, and after my adventures with those guys, it really solidified my beat.
Okay.
Yeah, my sense of time.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So because that's and I kind of wanted to start with that one because that seems like to be I don't want to say it's a new embrace, but it seems like a resurgent embrace amongst, a lot of jazz musicians, Kamasi Washington and Christian Scott, right? Like, a lot of those guys, and they're calling it, stretch music. And I mean, it seems like they're maybe saying it's a new thing, but it seems very like reminiscent to the stuff that you've done and some guys, prior to that era.
Well, a lot of them, aren't aware of that my recording. It wasn't a commercial success. I mean, in the United States, but I toured extensively in Europe and Japan and Australia, everywhere else. Yeah. Because mind you, back in 1993, there were no hip hop bands like that so much. I mean, the Roots, they were called the Square Roots, and they did some sessions in my garage, which I converted to a studio. I have tape. I have tapes of them. Yeah, Amir was like playing on a phone book. Scott Storch, was playing my Fender Rhodes, and
wow.
Tariq and what was the other cat? He just passed away. Yeah, but and Leonard Hubbard, the bass player, I went to Berkeley with him. So
the lineage is there. Okay.
Yeah, they used to play on South Street. I mean, I was really big, I did sessions for a lot of different people, Big Daddy Kane, Queen Latifah, a whole bunch of people, And so it was really good. So again, a lot of these people today, they're not really aware of that, so they you know, they're calling it something else, but you know, this is 1993.
Yeah, and now I kind of I know there's a couple guys that especially live here that are big fans of you, and they're probably yelling right now like, Kendrick, you ain't talked about of course the infamous Band in New York album that I know a lot of cats, especially in college, like they were like talking about that, still talking about that, and I know I read that it's like, you know, that wasn't even something that you thought about being a record. It was just like a recording that you had. And I thought the title was very gutsy, you know, to call it that too, especially, you know, just knowing, you know, your way of playing. Did you feel that way at the time? Like kind of like they, you know, they weren't one.
Well, in a metropolis like New York or, you know, any big city, you know, there's a certain level of conformity that's expected, you know, and a certain level of embracing a system of values and stuff, so you know you will be accepted, or you know you will be. And I was never like one of those first call kind of cats, because my plan was always alternative and abstract to even some people. There were some people who really dug it, and you know, but then you had like other players, you know, who, you know, got all the big tours, and you know got the first call, you know, got the top bread and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it didn't really bother me, because I was very satisfied, you know, with you know, my, you know,
journey.
I don't know, you know, I mean, you know, that's, you know, everybody has their own journey. That's cool.
That's right.
And so it was just a play on words, really. You know, it wasn't really, you know,
that you felt that way, but I liked it. I mean,
it wasn't that deep.
Yeah. I just, you know, I loved it though that way.
But it was, you know, it was a great period. It was a snapshot of, you know, what a band who plays all the time sounds like.
Yeah, and
you know, we were like on the road all the time, to the degree that, you know, I didn't even write set lists, and I didn't even like tell them what tune I was going to play. I just started playing, and they would follow me because they knew everything. They knew all the standards that I would play, and they knew all my originals.
And so, it felt like that, like very organic and kind of like water, like fluid, the way you, and it, one of the things that I really love about that record, it just kind of showed for me at the time, and I know a lot of other cats, is like the versatility of what jazz can really be, or if you want to call it that, or just instrumental, you know, improvisational music, you know, because like, of course, you know, you do pinup house here, but then you do your own thing, and it has its own, you know, a vibe to it. And I'll never forget, just kind of going back to the first time I met you, you came to the high school, East St. Louis Senior High School, and one of the girls, I forget her name, was like Natasha or something. She was a bass player, and she was really into like metal music or something. And you said, one of the statements you made was that with jazz, you're able to do anything. With music, you said there shouldn't be boundaries or no boundaries. And she said something like, well, how will it sound if you guys play heavy metal? And I can't remember what, I don't even think it was a tune, but you just counted off this thing and your band, and you guys just kind of shifted, and it sounded like heavy metal, improvisational music. And it was amazing. It blew her away, blew us away. And it just, that was like another one of those instances where it's like you really kind of just showed there should be no boundaries, you know, and that's how you be a great player, you know.
Well, you know, developing and maintaining, you know, that level of openness will open doors in terms of your eligibility, you know, to get called for certain gigs.
Yeah.
If you box yourself in and you become, you know, a heralded jazz musician or a jazz head, you know, that kind of thing. Well, then, you know, people outside of, you know, the typical so-called jazz police, you know, they won't call you.
Yeah, that's right.
And, you know, that's, I guess that's a formula, you know, to my longevity and my so-called success, if you want to call it that, you know, because I got calls from people way outside of the jazz genre. I mean, funk, soul, hip hop, reggae, you know, chamber music, soca, merengue, calypso, salsa, you know, whatever. They say, man, call this guy, man. He can read, he can improvise, he can play, and he comes with a good attitude, and you know, and he'll, raise the bar a little bit, you know. So you get that kind of reputation, but then, you know, you're solid.
Yeah, I mean, and even like while you were talking about like chamber music, I was gonna lead me to the next thing I was gonna say. I was like, I hope you talk about it, but the next record, I don't know if this is next in your discography, but it's kind of the ones I know I'm trying to go forward and the ones I checked out. But Symbols of Light, which I really like that one, and it seems to be like definitely just like a different vibe from maybe some other things, maybe because it has all the strings and things too. But there's like a quote where they talk about Charlie Parker with Strings record, and they say something to the effect of Charlie Parker made the strings. It's like they didn't say make it swing, but they said they made the strings play jazz in a way, just the way his playing. And on that record, Symbols of Light, I felt that like the things that you have the strings do. It's like it's not like they're trying to swing or play jazz, but it's like it fit perfectly. It didn't feel like sometimes you hear like records and you have like more traditional instruments trying to do with jazz, and it's like you can feel this divide. But I just wanted to kind of ask, what was the concept behind that record, and and what does Symbols of Light mean?
Well, the concept behind the record, I mean, was basically following my theory or my theorem of not having any project mirror the one that preceded it. I want each one to be a different story, a completely different book. A lot of artists, they do consecutive recordings, but it's basically the same recording with a different title.
Yeah.
Or with a different cover. It's the same thing, same guys, same type of songs, same approach, and there's very little advancement or very little progress made other than, just another,
melody different
CD in there, their discography. So, and I always wanted to do, a 4x4, a quartet, with a string quartet.
Okay.
And so if you notice, like each of my recordings, they exhibit, like a certain series of principles. They adhere to a theme. It's like a novel. More or less.
Okay.
Even the titles. And Symbols of Light, a solution, means it was a solution to the end of racism.
All right.
And so you see some of the titles. One is called Northbound. It's like the Northern Migration, 3 for Civility.
Yep. I love
Repay in Kind, which is
that's my favorite. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like it's like Black Code. It's like it's like written inside the music.
If you know it.
Yeah, it's like playing a record backwards. It's like, what does that mean? But they all have deeper meaning. And to be honest with you, a lot of the titles to those compositions, that's the last thing that happens. I don't name them until all the compositions are done. Some people start with the title, and they use that, but I want it to be a lot more meaningful than that.
Wow, yeah. And
String Quartet is was a quartet by Nyoko Workman, whose bassist Reggie Workman, his daughter.
Wow, okay.
And so it's like 4 sisters. Well, no, it was 3 sisters and this cat from Ohio, Christian.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, it worked out really well. I mean, that's one of my proudest pieces.
Yeah, and now that you told me about it, now I want to go back and listen to it, and I feel like I'll have like more, like get even more depth out of it than I thought. St. Louis Shoes, and that's where I particularly met you. Did you feel like it was just that you were fine? You were thinking about the city and just kind of wanted to maybe do a record that paid, I don't know, homage to that?
Well, the president of Blue Note Records, the inimitable Bruce Lundvall, who was a great fan of the music. I mean, he was so much a fan. He would come to my gigs, even if it wasn't my gig.
Wow.
He just loved my playing. I mean, I have, nothing but respect for him. I mean, because I put out some very abstract records, and I was with Blue Note Records for 16 years doing whatever I wanted without any intervention from the label. He never told me what to do. He never told me what not to do. He just said, yeah, bring it on, man. I know it's going to be of high artistic value, but I'm like, wow, it was, a cherished position.
Yeah.
So, but he made one request and he said, man, I just love the way you play standards. Would you do a record of standards for me, And I put it off for many years, I said, because I don't do that, man.
Right.
I might put one standard on a record, here and now and then. But so I wanted to do that because, he was a soldier and, he held me down.
Yeah. Okay.
But I told him, I said, if I do them, they will be modified. They will be Osby files.
That's right.
And I said, man, I'm not going to do a straight reading of, some real
Yeah.
book, college ensemble type records and stuff. Because you can,
Of course.
those are a dime a dozen, people putting out those kind of like blowing session records and stuff.
Yeah.
Many of which are, largely disposable because no thought, or, nothing went into it.
Right. Absolutely.
Just like a jam session. So, and that's why those songs sound like they do. I say, man, I'm going to be, honorable, to the composer.
Yeah.
But I want people to know that this is a treatment.
Yeah. And of course, my favorite on that, just being from East St. Louis, Toodaloo.
Yeah.
I play that all the time,
Yeah. And
so,
that solely in that was basically snippets of me improvising on it. I put it in my computer and I let it loop and I just kept soloing over it. And then I took parts of the
wow. Okay.
and I pieced together. It's about maybe 6 or 7 different solos.
Yeah.
But the great thing about it is, Nicholas, I mean, he nailed it.
Yeah.
Because those are not like jazz rhythms, they're not typical. It's almost like marching rhythms,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You hear that.
And the intervals, I mean, that's based upon my system of an approach to improvisation. And he got in there.
Yeah. I saw that and I've watched it a couple times. The masterclass kind of that you did in Moscow, Russia, where you were kind of explaining like your system a little bit. You had the guy play the chorus on piano and was talking about these smaller groupings. And it wasn't until you said one thing about one of your influence in that masterclass that I heard it. Benny Carter, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And when you said that, I was like, I hear it. I hear it. It's just that little bit of bounciness in your playing. So, so let's go to that was talking about Blue Note. So your own label, which leads to the record In the Circle.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many killing records off of that. All Neon Like is probably my all like time favorite like record.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know between of yours that tune All Neon Like and then Please Stand By. It's like those are two of like the ones. It's a lot, but those like I'll cut on anytime. But what kind of made you? Well, what persuaded you to do your own? Because I mean, as you were saying, Blue Note, they've been, you enjoyed working there, but what made you say, hey, I want to start my own thing, go my own path, and see what it's like out there?
Well, as I said, I've been, fortunate in that I played with a whole lot of different people. I mean, from Gladys Knight to Aretha Franklin to, all kind of R&B groups and hip hop groups and rock groups. So at that time, it was nearing what I felt was the end of my tenure with Blue Note, because there were a lot of people in the office who never even listened to music. They didn't listen to any kind of improvised music. They looked like they should be at a rock label, with that look,
Yeah.
And I say, man, these people, I know they don't listen to jazz, and I know they don't know who I am. They were just, cashing the check.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it didn't feel musical there anymore. It felt real corporate.
Okay.
They moved into a different office. And so I was also on the road with, veneered, rock legendary band, the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
I was on the road with them. And then I was touring with their bass player, Phil Lesh.
Really?
And so once, we were playing, and then after the first half of the concert, I mean, those concerts were like going for 4 hours. 2 hours, then a 1 hour break, and then 2 more hours, and then a long, encore. So, but during the break, I said, Phil, man, I looked out into the audience, which was like a sea of people. I mean, they played for like, 30,000 people, and this was like normal.
Yeah.
I mean, so I said, man, some cats out there, man, bearded guys, with their tie-dye shirts, and, they're standing there with their arms folded, and they have all these boom mics and everything, and microphones and stuff. I said, man, they're taping they're taping the concert. What's up, man? I said, oh, why don't you send out security? He said, no, man, those are the tapers. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he was, he said that, yeah, since maybe 1966 or 1967, we've allowed people to tape our recordings. sort of our recordings are traded amongst all our fans, and so the group is in broad circulation whether we're actively on the road or not.
Wow.
Because
Okay.
you know, the badge of honor to any deadhead, you know, which is what they're
Called, yeah.
called, is to have every concert of a certain tour. So a guy would say, okay, I'll give you Cleveland if you give me Little Rock.
Okay.
You know, and so they have it so they can compare the sets, they can compare the different versions of the songs, and you know, yeah, I got the whole so and so tour, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's how they work, you know. So I said, man, that's deep.
Yeah,
yeah. So what I did was I took some shows of mine, and I compartmentalized, you know, the songs that I made separate MP3s of every song.
Okay.
It was like a band in New York, and I put them on my website, and I think I had 12 or 13 concerts, and people were downloading it like crazy. It was
of course,
like, Greg Osby in Amsterdam, Greg Osby in Japan, Greg Osby in Australia, Greg Osby in Greece, Greg Osby in Paris, blah, blah, blah. And so they burned CDs from those. And the demand was so great that the server crashed.
Wow.
Yeah, because people would just download like crazy. Because once the word got out, they were putting it up on these news group bulletin boards. Yeah, man, you can go to Greg Osby's website. So I had an epiphany. I'm like, wow, man, you know, I've done all these records. I did, you know, all these records for Blue Note, and then I did 3 records for, you know, a label that was distributed through Polygram, you know, back in the day. And I said, I don't own any of those records. And I said, if they, you know, some of them are out of print, people can't find them. Yeah. And also, since they own it, if they want to reprint them and reissue them, if they want to put a baboon on the cover and put Greg Osby on it, they can do that. Yeah. I said, I have no control over it, you know. Yeah. And so that's when I decided to go independent. I said, man, I need to own my own product. I'm selling more, you know, for them that they own. And I say it's just not right. You know? Yeah. And then there was also an issue of the numbers. Okay. You know, when there's a release, and then you're promoting that CD, and then I would come back and I would get like these what do they call it? P&L statements. It's called profit and loss. Okay. It lets you know how much you sold within like a certain quarter or whatever. And I'm looking at the numbers and say, oh yeah, you know, you sold, you know, like 500, you know, between this month and this month. I'm like, man, that's not possible, because I just, you know, I was on tour, you know, for like all these months, and I know I sold, you know, more. I signed more CDs than that backstage, and I would take boxes of CDs and sell them at the concert, and I sold more than that. You know, so these, you know, so it was like some shady numbers. I'm like. You know, I'm not saying they were trying to, you know, jerk me, but it was time to, to bounce.
Yeah. And I mean, it's great because, you know, there's nothing like having the freedom to just, you know, do it at your pace, do what you want to do. And I mean, the music, like, it seems like from your own labels, there is a little feeling of freedom in them. You know, it just seems like you can just, you know, go in.
That's why I call it inner circle music as opposed to inner circle jazz. I mean, my only criteria is that, you know, what they do be in earnest and of high artistic value. Absolutely. And since 2007, I mean, we've had close to, you know, 100 releases, you know, and all my artists own their work. I don't own any of it. I don't own a percentage of it. You know, it's like a whole different paradigm for me. I don't want to be that greedy, you know, label owner. Yeah, you know, give me some of your publishing and sign over this, and you know, I have a percentage in that. You know, my analogy for that is you know, for a lot of these labels, it's almost like if you know, like a doctor is, you know, in the birthing room and the baby is about to be delivered, and he's like, hold up, wait a minute, you know, here's a contract. Yeah, you give me 50% of that baby, you know, he's not coming out. You know, it's like I shouldn't own any part of people's work.
Wow. You know, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I don't believe in it. I'll help them promote it. I'll do what I can. I'll lend my expertise and and whatever they need from me.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk. So we talked about a lot to do with the past and your own label. I want to give the opportunity to go to the present with first thing I'll ask you about this new duo thing that, I mean, I saw the videos of it and it just sounds great too, by the way. You know, it's still, I love just the artistic vibe of it too. The guy's kind of painting to you all's playing. What made you, what inspired you to do that? A duo record, just, you know, you and drums.
Well, like I said, you know, I wanted to, and I still want to, I want to do a recording that reflects every possible configuration, you know, for a saxophone player, you know.
Yeah.
I've yet to do a big band recording. I've recorded with orchestras before, but I've yet to do a big band recording. I've done, you know, the quartet plus another quartet. I've done trios, you know, which is my record Channel 3.
Yeah.
I've done lots of quartet records and quintet records and things like, you know, sextet and octet and every other kind of tet, you know. You know, but so, you know, duo is, you know, exceptionally challenging because as a player, you have to compensate, you know, for the missing elements. You have to compensate for the lack of drums, you know, the rhythm, percussive element, and you also have to compensate for the lack of a bass. So I had to actually play those functions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm playing bass lines, and sometimes I'm comping on the saxophone, playing, you know, progressive elements on the saxophone, so it sounds almost like, you know, comping. Yeah. Two-handed polyphonic comping. And the guy that I played with, Florian Arbens, he's actually an orchestral percussionist. He plays timpani, marimba,
okay.
you know, all the percussion.
So that's why he goes into the
drums. Yeah.
Okay.
So it, you know, we wanted it to be as full, you know, as possible, you know, and not just sound like, you know, two guys. And that's also why, you know, I picked up the soprano again, because I don't play it as often as I used to, because, you know, the TSA isn't that friendly. You know, they want, you know, you come on board, you know, with like two saxophones, they want you to check one of them, and you know what's going to happen to your horn if it goes under the plane.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you have beautiful soprano sound though, man. I mean, I think first time I heard you do it was like there was a video of you with Herbie and doing soprano. So I was like, man. Yeah. So I'm glad you pulling it out.
Yeah, it's you know, it deserves respect.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a good way.
A lot of you know, alto and tenor players think they can just, you know, jump on it and play the same content. You can't play the same way.
It doesn't work.
And that's also why I don't play tenor, because I, you know, hearing the way I play on a tenor saxophone, you know, with all, you know, the intervallic leaps and the rhythms and, you know, the stutter step and, you know, and all that kind of backpedaling and it just, you know, it's just not, it doesn't sound right.
It doesn't sound, I get that too. I agree with that. I remember hearing, you know, quite people say, you know, why don't you just play tenor? You sound like that on the alto. I was like, because I don't want to, you know, play tenor. It doesn't, you know, and I found that even when I try to play tenor, sometimes what I'll start doing is just trying to go higher and higher, because trying to make it beat alto. So yeah, well, I love that. Okay, last thing that I want to ask, and I really want to tell you thank you again for your time. I know, you know, with everything going on, you know you're busy and just, yeah, I really do appreciate this. You know, I
right
was
now,
a fan of it.
I'm less busy than I normally would be. I'm doing a lot of online teaching and online master classes right now. You know, everybody's homebound. You know, whole itinerary for the year was just canceled. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Countries won't allow Americans in their countries because people over here won't follow the rules, and the numbers, you know, keep spiking. So yeah, you know, it's really, you know, throwing a monkey wrench into everybody's, you know, activities, and hopefully, you know, we'll land on our feet.
Yeah,
collectively.
So that was what I was going to ask you. During this, with the pandemic and kind of not being as busy as you normally would be and everything, how do you keep yourself motivated musically, but then also personally? You know, how do you keep yourself, you know, spiritually just still, you know, excited to or motivated to just do whatever you have to do through your daily life?
Well, as has been reflected, you know, in our chat here, I mean, you can see, you know, I like to talk. I especially like to talk about music and art.
Yeah.
And so I have the same, you know, abundance of enthusiasm about this music and about learning and about exchanging ideas and information as I did, you know, when I was your age. You know, I mean, you know, just yesterday, you know, I mean, and typically on any given day, I mean, Steve Coleman and I will talk on the phone for, you know, 3 or 4 hours. you know,
Yeah.
or longer, you
Yeah.
know, and we're playing stuff and sending each other, you know, video clips and stuff. And I talk to other musicians, you know, Gary Thomas and all, you know, and we really get into it because it's a perpetual, you know, lifestyle of learning and absorption and, you know, just introduction to things that you can incorporate into the art every
Absolutely.
day. I mean, you can build upon, you know, what you've already established, you know, by just, you know, being open and accepting of some, you know, another perspective and another spin on things.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so I have no issues with motivation or whatever. I mean, you know, practicing, it always reveals something else, another way to approach things.
Absolutely.
You know, even like just playing on standards or whatever. I mean, if you just change the key, you go
Yeah, I
back
know.
half step. Now you like open up like 6 months of practice.
That's it.
You know,
Absolutely.
you take every song you play and you just go up a half step, you know, because we normally play stuff in neutral keys, A flat, B flat, and C.
Yeah.
You go up a half step, now you got 10,000 sharps and flats. Now you have to like really, you know, conjure
Think
up.
about what you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you know, that's not a problem. You know, composing, that's a way of life. You know, every day I'm either 8 bars here, 4 bars there, 16 bars, or even full-blown songs. So I have a lot of music that hopefully will get heard in my lifetime.
Yeah.
There's no problem with that. Study, you know, inside and outside of the musical spectrum, you know, studying philosophy, trying to, you know, cook, you know, learn how to, you know, cook better, studying
Absolutely.
languages. I'm trying to, you know, learn Spanish again.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, Italian. So, I mean, you know, it's, you know, live, you know, in an isolated situation,
Yeah. Absolutely.
but still there's, you know, the world is small. I mean, we can connect, you know, virtually here.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I get, you know, propositions, you know, from different musicians all over the world who want to collaborate.
Yeah.
They'll send me tracks and then I'll do something, you know, in my home studio, you know. So I'm
Like
still,
the Rite of Spring thing.
yeah.
Different.
You know, so actually we did that, you know, years ago. I mean, I think more than 10 years ago, but the record company, there was like some legal, something happened. And so it just sat in limbo forever.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And right now I'm sitting on the completed tracks of my latest group recording for my group. But,
Okay.
you know, I can't mix it because I'm not going to sit in the studio with some dude. And I don't know where he's been or who he's been around.
Yeah, that's smart.
Until things, you know, resolve. You know, but that's something I'm very proud of because it's a recording of compositions, you know, where improvisation is not the focus. It's composition, environment, and color and detail. And I'm really proud. This will be my masterwork as far as I'm concerned.
Oh man, now you got me even more excited. So that's man, that's a good way to close it. Before I go, thank you. Did you have any questions for me?
No, I'm just you know, wondering. I mean, do you have a you know, like a clique of cats that you normally work with that you can vibe with and you can bounce ideas off of? I mean, and who also inspire you? That's really necessary. I mean, because you know, there are pockets of activity everywhere, but depending on where you are, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to find these like-minded souls.
Yeah. You know, I envy some of that. I mean, my bass player that I play with all the time, Bernard. You know, we will talk.
That's a cat who's on your show.
Yes,
sir. Yeah, you cats together are funny, man. Y'all need to do stand up, man.
But you know, I mean, it is some of the same upbringing through the church and a desire to be better and to constantly question things like you question. So I definitely enjoy talking to him. I mean, it seems like I've as far as mentorships, I'm kind of like seems to be surrounded by maybe more older cats now, and I've been doing some things with Ronnie Barrage for a little bit, and we met through we did a tribute concert for Ham Your Bluid, and so you know, it was funny to meet him, and he didn't really know me at first. It was just kind of getting used to each other, but like now, and I, you know, it's like family, and it's kind of the same thing. you said one of the things you said at the beginning is that you just and I read this in an interview too. You said you just observing and you'll listen and ask questions, and that's kind of how I'm glad I'm kind of like that with Ronnie, and you know, I've asked you, you know, some questions about things, and so, you know, I love that like mentorship thing. You know, maybe it's an avenue I haven't thought about, something I haven't, you know, or maybe like, man, you need to check this out a little bit. So.
Yeah, you know, there was a cat in St. Louis, Richard Henderson. Did you know Rich?
Oh yes. Oh man. Yes.
Yeah. He used to, you know, after we used to play sets, and then, you know, he said, okay, I'm having a set at you know, at my house. And I said, what time? Yeah, it's starting at 1 a.m., you know, so we could be over there all night. You know, he had walls of vinyl, you know.
Yeah.
And he would just pull out stuff. I mean, he turned me on to so much, like in the 70s, you know. Oh, yeah, this is Earl Bostic, you know, this is Louis Jordan. You ever heard of Willie Smith? You know, you ever heard of Eddie Cleanhead Vincent? You know, all these alternative Charlie Parker cats, you know, pre-Charlie Parker cats, or, you know, contemporaries, man, you know. And you know, yeah, you need to check out some tenor players, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, here's, you know, Ben Webster, you know, Ben Webster, oh, you know, Ike Quebec, you know, but, you know, just like all these obscure, you know, hey, Booker Irvin, you know who Booker Irvin is, you know who Zoot Sims is, some of the white boys can play it too, you know.
Yeah, that's him.
you know, and you know, that kind of thing. And Willie Aikens, I mean, he never gave me a lesson, but I mean, I was observant, you know, because since I always had a saxophone with me, they would allow me in these clubs when I was underage, so I could like sit up and watch his fingers, and you know, and see how, you know, his articulation, because St. Louis is known for being a very articulate town in terms of detail. You know, Clark Terry, Willie Aikens, you know, he was coming out of the Stanley Turrentine thing, and then Freddie Washington, you know, and so they were, you know, they had a different approach. And then, you know, there was a really great guitarist back in the day, man, Richard Martin. If you can find any old tapes of him, man, this cat was like so articulate, and
Richard Martin,
that he really had it going on, you know. So it was, you know, it was a bountiful place. I mean, you know, I used to play, you know, off and on with this organist. His name is Terry Williams, and the Soul Merchants at this place called the Midtown Lounge. Yeah,
I've heard of it.
Then they had a place called the Moose Lounge.
The Moose, I know Rich used to talk about that all the time.
Yeah, it used to be popping, man, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you were talking about going by Mr. Henderson's place, that's how I call it. Montez Coleman is the reason why I ended up going, because he had been telling me for years. He said, man, you got to get to the house. That's what Richard Henderson would say. You got to get to the house. And Montez said something, he caught me one time. He said, Kendrick, it took me like 20 years to go. Don't wait like 20 years to not go, and goes. And I went with him into his house, and I mean, he showed me like, you know, like a few CDs and some pictures of the Moose sounds, but in my mind I'm kind of thinking like, I know there's the room, where are the records? And he took to this room, man, which is like stuff I know has been out of print, you know, for years, of just like you said, the same guys. And so the next year, I think it was the next year, he passed, and I it's just kind of crazy. I'm really glad that that's another, you know, St. Louis person I'm glad I listened to, Montez Coleman. It kind of just like gave me the nudge, like, hey, don't wait. So
yeah, well, the thing is, I mean, you know, again, you know, briefly, I mean, you know, back when I was coming up, St. Louis was just bountiful in terms of inspiration. There were a lot of places to play. There were a lot of elders around who would, you know, give you a shot, you know, if you had it together, or if, you know, they saw some, you know, some talent brewing, you know, they would, you know, be encouraging. And they would take you under the wing, or, you know, and hip you to some things that you should know, or that they thought you should know. You know, they had a good radio station, had Leo Cheers, you know. And, you know, and he, you know, and it was a great place to be from. I mean, it kind of, there was a lull, you know, during some of my return trips to the city. You know, places would close down, then another place would open up. Yeah, and so, you know, I'm just optimistic, you know, that it, you know, will be revitalized, and, you know, there will be another wave of people who, you know, who exhibit, you know, the St. Louis sound, because, you know, that whole area, it has a vibe, because due to the placement of St. Louis and East St. Louis, where they are, people had to go through them to get west, or to go through them to get east, or they had to go through them, you know, coming down south to go up to Chicago and Detroit. So it was like, you know, very perfectly positioned, you know, and a lot of people stayed. And so they left, you know, their, you know, the elements of their performance, you know, style, or their technique, or, you know, their vibe there. So it was a great melting pot.
Yeah, that's a saying that a lot of like musicians we'll talk and we'll say, like, if you're gonna play, you got to know everything, because and like it was great hearing you talk about, like, you may do a funk band here or the blues band here, just so yeah.
And you're only limited by your imagination, because a lot of people think that alternative environments are limiting, but if you are expansive enough in your thinking and your output, you can function in those situations and still sound like yourself, and still be respectful to the vibe and do well. I mean, you're not going to get in a funk band and start playing giant steps, changes.
Yeah.
And you're not going to play in a reggae band and start whipping out a whole bunch of crazy substitutions and incredible harmony.
Absolutely.
But there's a way to make it work and it to be fulfilling, both spiritually and artistically and financially. You have to figure out how to sustain yourself and do it all without doing it all.
Yeah, without doing it all. I love that. Man, do it all without doing it. I love that. Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much. I'll here, let me hit the stop the record. I just want to say thank you again, Greg, guys. I really appreciate you taking this time.
Of course.
Hit the stop. All right, so I really want to thank Greg Osby for agreeing to do that interview. It was a lot. I learned a lot from it. He likes the show, so I'm happy about that. And just thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate it.
The GOAT.
And so look, bro, we talked about jazz. Drank a lot of juice. So now it's time to vote. Of course, as you all know, the election day is coming up, and I'm sure we can all agree this is a time where voting is most important. So please go out there, exercise your right to vote, and vote for a change. So, bro, in honor of a change, we're gonna do a little shift in our jam today, and especially. So, and I'm sure Greg wouldn't mind if we played one of his tunes. This is one that I heard him do a long time ago. It's a great tune. It's called "Please Stand By." So, please stand by for the jam, y'all. Man, I want to thank you so much.
Oh man, I want to thank
for
you,
doing
man.
the show.
Thank you for the juice.
Got a complaint.
It's a little sweet. 99 cents.
Why you got to talk about the price? See, some people.
I'm grateful because they haven't changed their prices in 400 years.
But anyway, I mean, man, look, I'm glad that throughout all this, been happy, been healthy. In spite of, you know, everything going on, I'm glad we can get together, have a good time, and
we're doing this every quarter.
I know, right?
We're gonna make this a regular thing, man.
Your beard's gonna get bigger, my fro, hopefully. Probably will continue to grow.
Hey man, this boy, nothing.
Bro, you looking like one of the
grumpy
from Snow White and Seven Dwarfs.
I got the fries that will cross your eyes.
Bro, you got what kind of dwarf are you? You got the hat on, bro. What are you? Not grumpy,
this boy,
sleepy.
This boy got the Madea
You gassy, bro.
on.
That's your dwarf name, gassy.
Hey, I'm gonna post a picture of what he's wearing right now. This boy look like a model for 2001.
Look, y'all have a good rest of your day. We out.
Yeah.
To the next episode.
See y'all
See you later.